Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Kotlin tutorial. If you are here, it's because you're here to learn about Kotlin. You're here to have an introduction to Kotlin, or maybe you're just a Java developer who just wants to learn the basics about Kotlin. If that's what you're here for, then we're happy to have you. So in these tutorials, we'll be showing you just the basics of Kotlin, from variables to the data types to the operators to strings. We might look at some if and else statements, look at some classes, some object-oriented programming, and then we'll actually develop some applications in Android Studio using Kotlin. Okay, so let's get started. So the first screen you're going to have when you download Android Studio is what I have in front of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on New Project. And once you click on New Project, Android Studio will give you some templates to start off with if you would like to build your application on a phone or a tablet, a watch, a TV, or in a car. Android gives you that opportunity to be able to do this. For this tutorial, we're actually going to select the empty views activity as a template to help us start off. So I'm just going to click on the empty views activity. There are several activities that you can use, but for this purpose, I'm just going to click on empty views activity. Once you click on this empty views activity, you would have the opportunity to be able to create kind of different kind of folders that you want to work with. For the purpose of this videos, I will be creating a new document, maybe called Android Studio Kotlin, for example. And then I'm going to store all my applications in there. Okay, so this is tutorial one. So I'm just going to click on tutorial one and then create it and then click open. And this is going to be the folder that I will be working with. Okay. So the name of my application, I'm just going to call it Android Basics, because we'll be covering a few basics in here. And then what I can do is I can just put this plus here, this forward slash, sorry. And then the language that you can code in is you can either code in Java or you can code in Kotlin. In this case, I'm going to click on Kotlin. And then the minimum SDK, I'm going to leave it as the recommended one, because by default, Android Studio will pick one that would be that your application can run on many devices. So for this case, it's telling me that the SDK I have chosen will enable my app to run on approximately 96.3% of devices. Okay, so I'm just going to click on finish. And when I click on finish, what I should be seeing right now, or what you're seeing right now, which I believe, if I share my screen again, you should be able to see that our application has been loaded. So what you can see here is on the left-hand side, you will see your app folder. Inside your app folder, you have access to the manifest. You have access to your Java main activity. You have access to your Gradle script. You have access to your resource folder, which we'll be diving into it as we go along. But for today, we are just going to be generally be looking at Android basics. So just to show you a few of the basics that you need to carry on, okay? So in Kotlin, okay, in Kotlin, there are two different ways where we can actually define variables, okay? Now, if you think about Java, in Java, you have to declare maybe a string, and then you can do a username equals, maybe let's say Kofi, for example. That is how you do in Java. In Kotlin, there are two different ways of how we can actually accomplish this, okay? In Java, we do it this way, but in Kotlin, we have two different variable types. We have a var, and then we also have a val, okay? Val usually holds values, while var usually sort of hold values that can be changed, okay? So those are the kind of two types of variables that you usually will come across, okay? So the difference between var and val is that variables declared with var keyword can be changed or modified, while variables with val cannot be changed, okay? So this is a typical example of how you would declare a variable in Kotlin, um, similar to how Java does it. So we can do var, I mean, not VAR the football, but var name equals, and then we can do string, and then, right, actually, I'm still coding in Java, sorry. So it will be var, and then we do name with a colon, and then string equals, and then let's say Kofi, okay? So this is how another way of how you can actually declare a variable in Kotlin. Sometimes I write in Java, so sometimes when I'm writing in Kotlin, I kind of switch to Java, okay? So you might find me switching in Java and then coming back to Kotlin. I do apologize for that. So what we have here is we have, let's say, a string username. Okay, let me just change this to username, for example. So in Java, you would usually create a variable like this. In Kotlin, you can create a variable this way: var username and then a colon, then you specify the data type equals the value that is going to contain. Okay, this is one way of creating a variable. Now, when you create a variable like this, you cannot change the value. Okay, so this variable that we have now, you cannot actually change the value, but there is another way of how we can actually create a variable, okay? So this example here that I'm about to show you, we can actually make it quite simpler for ourselves. Kotlin will allow us to be able to simplify this code by shortening this code to this: var username equals Kofi. Now, when you create the variable this way, what we're doing is we are cutting out the data type. So in this case, Kotlin already knows that the value of Kofi, which is in quotation marks, is already a string. So Kotlin already knows that is a string. Okay, so that is the benefit of using Kotlin. Kotlin determines the data type by the value that you give it. Okay, so in this case, we have been able to shorten this code by taking out the semicolon, the colon, and also the string keyword. The reason why it's giving us an error is because I have two of the same variable names. Okay, so if I wanted to, just to show you how we comment in Kotlin, you can just do 2//, okay? And that will comment out any code that you have, okay? Alternatively, you can also do, if I'm using a Mac, so I do command / to uncomment and command / to also comment. So that's another way of how you can actually comment in Kotlin. So what I have now is I have created a variable called username, which holds the value Kofi. Okay. Now this type of variable can be changed. Okay. So if I click on username equals, let's say Kwame, right? I can make changes to the variable because I've declared it as a var, and that var keyword means that we can actually modify the value inside that variable, okay? The other type of variable that we can declare is the val type of variable, okay? So if I do val username equals, right, let me change it to username one equals Kofi, for example. If I use the val keyword, I cannot modify what's inside that variable, okay? So a typical example would be username one equals Kwame. Now you can see in the video that I'm getting an error. I am getting an error because variables declared with the username, with the val keyword cannot be modified. Okay, so if I put my mouse on there, it says val cannot be reassigned, change to val. So these are basically the two types of variables that you can actually create, okay? So when you create a variable with a val keyword, the value cannot be changed or reassigned. If you use the var keyword, the value can be changed to whenever you want to. So now the next question you might want to ask me would be, Emmanuel, so how can I, or in what stage will I ever use a val keyword? Once we start to build Android applications, it would make sense. But let's think of something like pi. Pi is something that never changes, okay? So a value like pi, which is 3.1.3.1411592, all the way going upwards, though that word, that number never changes. Okay, so something like that, we will use the value for it because we don't want it to ever change because it never changes. Okay, but for var keyword is used for variables that are likely to change. Okay, so I hope this gives you a better explanation on var and val keywords when you're creating a variable in Kotlin.